the Football Pod on Off the Ball in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Hashtag the toughest.
Hello there, and you're very welcome along to episode 15 of the Football Pod. It's a busy week ahead for the Football Pod, lads. We had a very busy weekend too. It's safe to say that the Football Pod took over. We had Paddy Andrews making his GA Go debut, and James O'Donoghue appearing on the Saturday game. What, Jimmy? What's the story? This never went through your agent.
Appearing on. That wasn't an appearance. That was a 2-second cameo.
20 seconds.
I met Marty in town. He was just getting onto the horse and cart, so he said, "James, we do a quick bit for me there."
It looked very informal, like you were just coming out of the shop or something, or Marty cornered you. Like.
I was coming out of the pub. I was after 4 pints.
You were thrown out of the pub, and Marty was trying to get you back in. Top class. I
He's
thought
a
it
gas
looked
man.
great. What a
I
man.
actually never knew how much of a celebrity Marty is.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's
The
big.
amount of
Big time.
women coming over, selfies, holding the microphone, fellas coming over, wanting a chat. Reckless.
Oh, he's a
He's pure
phenomenon.
show
So
business.
popular.
He's
Yeah.
showbiz. Like.
He is showbiz. He even said that a few times.
Showbiz.
Showbiz.
baby.
I wouldn't be
baby.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. He was doing. Oh, he's a gas man. We need to get him at the roadshow, lads. I said it. Like, get Marty involved.
True, yeah. The walk and talk isn't easy though, James. You know, you got to concentrate on where you're stepping. You got to look at the mic. You got to look at the camera. You know, you got to look at the man who's talking to you too. It's hard going.
How many takes did you
Well,
do,
I have
Jimmy?
walked and talked at the same time before. It wasn't that tricky.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, it was just saying pressure was on the first night of Saturday game. Paddy, GA Go, yourself and Mark and O'Shea, we were at Grania McElwain in Salt Hill covering the Calvin Armagh game. That happens a lot in TV production and streaming production.
Oh, I'm told. I'm
were
not as showbiz as Marty, so I didn't know where to be going. But no, it was good. Mark and Michael Murphy's involved as well. So looking forward to getting involved in that in the summer. Mark's a gas man, isn't he?
Oh yeah,
He is a gas man.
we might come back to Mark O'Shea in a couple of minutes.
Good bit of crack. Good bit of crack was had, I have to say. The game itself wasn't great, which was disappointing because I expected a lot more from Cavan. I think a lot of people did. They were poor, and the game itself, to be fair to Armagh, back-to-back wins in the Ulster Championship. They play down. You tipped it a long time ago, Tommy,
Fair
that
play,
down
Tom.
would surprise Donegal, and they did. So Armagh, they seem to have put that sluggish league campaign behind them, and they got Rian O'Neill back. It was big. We've seen Killian McDade coming back for Galway as well yesterday in the last couple of minutes. So they're massive players for those teams. So but as a spectacle,
He could go back in goals. Do you see his
some save, wasn't it?
Absolutely unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Out of nowhere, like he was out of shot.
And it's a strong hand he gets to it as well, because he puts it well out of danger.
The hair,
That
like.
was class. He'll be back in McGeeney's good books now again.
They had a big hug after the game there. It was fair play to them. Put all differences aside.
The Football Pod had you covered this weekend. Paddy, you're obviously covering Calvin Armagh. James, you were in Killarney for Kerry and Tipperary. We didn't talk much about it in the build-up to it. I'm not sure how much we'll talk about it this week, but Kerry are going on to face Clare now in the Munster final on Sunday, May the 7th. I was in the gated grounds for Limerick-Clare, and I was in the Hyde for Galway-Roscommon. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. I just want to put it on the record here. It may come out later in the week where this game is going to be played. I think it'd be a good thing for Kerry to play Clare in Ennis. A packed out Ennis for a Munster final. I think
Jimmy's not happy already. Look at him. He's disgusted with that.
Don't do what the Dubs do and get their games in Croke Park all the time. Make it a
where were Dublin playing yesterday?
That's fine. But organise it.
Yesterday? Sorry? Where were they playing yesterday?
No, was it Nolan Park?
No, Portlaoise. Anyway, move on.
Anyway, you can organise the fixtures. All the fixtures are organised. You can't just say, well, actually, Kerry are playing well and it's Clare, so we'll change the venue to put Clare at home. Why would anyone do that?
It's a TBC.
Yeah, but it's on the gated grounds.
It's not yet. It's not confirmed.
It will be on the gated grounds.
I don't know about that now. But would it not be?
But there's arrangements between all the other counties,
What good is
between
it for
home and
Kerry?
away every second one. So if that was in place, you'd say brilliant. It
Jimmy,
would be a
just play
great
it in
game in
Fusion
Ennis.
Park, will you? Come on. Get
It'd
off
be
the
a great game
horse.
in Ennis.
Like,
But
did you see?
You can't just put someone at home for no reason.
I'm not sure you
Dubs
saw
will
it.
do
No,
it.
but it's not
Dubs
for
will
no
do it.
reason. It'd actually be to Kerry's benefit. Think of it. They're going to be going in now to face a third seed, which is going to be one of Mayo, Roscommon, Tyrone, or probably Derry or an Armagh as a third seed and they'll be playing them at home. So they're going to be going in undercooked. You can be sure as hell Clare will give them a better game than Tipp. But like Clare and Ennis is a different prospect than Clare and the Gaelic grounds.
It is. And Clare in Ennis, that is a tough game for anyone. You know, the crowd are on top of the field. It's a beautiful surface, one of the nicest fields in the country, actually.
You love it there, don't you?
Yeah, and it would be a great game, but it's hard to change your own fixtures just for this to say, we'll make it a little bit more difficult for Kerry. That just
on the team of showbiz for this week's pod. If Todd Bowley was making a call on this as a spectacle, the Munster final in Ennis would be way better.
Like, and I think Clare can get a couple of loan deals as well. They can take one from each province.
This is what we're talking about. This is dangerous. This is entertainment.
This is dangerous.
But territory. Now, in all seriousness, like it looked class to you. You were there yesterday. Hyde Park looked absolutely rammed for that game yesterday. 16. Savage atmosphere. Yeah. Clare and Kerry in the Gaelic grounds doesn't really rock your boat. Whereas in Ennis, they're packed out. I agree, it'll be better. I think Kerry are going to win no matter where this game is played. But I just think it's a spectacle with my Todd Bowley hat on. I think it would be better, yeah. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I do think it's going to be Limerick.
I think it was 17, James, that the Clare gave you a bit of a rattle for a bit of the game in Munster.
Yeah, Donncha, the ref was very giddy with the cards, and Donncha got a second yellow.
Again, was it?
A second. You got second in the first half, so we were down at halftime.
Yeah,
we were very difficult game.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to come out of there, but I agree it would be a better spectacle, better game, better venue in Ennis. It would be better for everyone, but have it organised beforehand. Don't just willy-nilly pick it.
Some of these venues are TBCs anyway.
But you can't TBC a home venue.
Look, you know Jack O'Connor better than any of us.
Anyone?
What's Jack O'Connor going to want?
No? Definitely not.
What's Jack O'Connor going to want? Is he going to want Kerry to be in the Gaelic grounds, or is he going to want to go into the cauldron in Ennis?
He's going to want Kerry to win.
Yeah, he won't give it.
He's not going to give in to Ennis.
Jack doesn't care. Yeah, Jack doesn't care. Anyway, we might come back to Clare Limerick a little later. That was a very, very, very cagey game. Very cagey game. It was a penalty shootout last year that decided it. But in the last 15 minutes, quality just exploded. And this has kind of been a pattern that's followed games over the last while. We saw it in the Roscommon Galway game, Paddy, at the weekend. Very slow first half in ways. There was only 29 phases to play. I think there was nearly 50 in the second half. Teams are holding on to the ball. They're trying to slow it down. And Galway completely controlled that first half against Roscommon and probably should have been further ahead.
Yeah. It is a team, because that's just the way a lot of teams are setting up, and they're dropping bodies back. And we've seen this in a couple of games over the weekend. The Cavan Armagh game up in Newry yesterday with Donegal against Down. And Galway, I loved what Galway did yesterday. I loved it. They kept the ball. They get a score. Colin Sweeney gets a fist a point after 20 minutes. And they were the only team to do this effectively over the weekend, where they keep the ball for over 2 minutes. Damien Comer gets one as well later on in the half. They keep the ball for 2 or 3 minutes at a time, and they work a shot. And it's horrible to watch. If you're with my Todd Bowley hat on again, it's not a great spectacle when a team does that. It's definitely not great for the opposition, because they're playing on the opponent's terms. And this is what Roscommon did so effectively against Mayo. But Galway brought that yesterday. But Galway had the finished product, that they'd work a really good shot. We seen Cavan have an absolute howler playing against Armagh's set defence, and Cavan kicked 16 wides. And they're shooting from all over the shot.
Yeah, you saw the graphic.
Yeah, horrendous. And you could see it at the time. It was just bad execution, because they were afraid. It was like the Cavan lads had the ball for 60 seconds. And like, that's too long. We have to get a shot. And we seen it big time with Donegal yesterday as well in Port Kessler against Down. Oh, so many forced shots. Kieran Thompson, Michael Langan before he goes off injured. And it's all right to keep the ball for a couple of minutes. You have to keep the ball in order to really, really patient to break teams down. Mayo couldn't do it and didn't do it in Castlebar against Roscommon the week before. But Galway yesterday, it just shows a team who are really well coached, but they're all on the same wavelength. There's one time in the first half, I think it was Peter Cook has a Hail Mary, and Paul Conroy absolutely eats him out of it. And I was like, that is a team who knows exactly what they need to do. So it's not great to watch. I agree, T. But
can I just make?
But it was very good from Galway in controlling the game.
I watched Limerick and Clare do that for a lot of that game. It wasn't good to watch. Roscommon weren't as good to watch at doing it until Roscommon unleashed in the second half. Galway were actually good to watch doing it. It was interesting to watch how fast Galway were moving it, and they keep finding John Daly and Sean Kelly at the top of the kind of 45, top of the D.
Yeah, that would be planned. And Shane Walsh. Yeah.
Keep finding their boys like that. Now, Shane Walsh had quite a quiet game. Brian Stack did a really good job on Shane Walsh.
Yeah, he was excellent.
But, like, what was really interesting for me in this game was the options now that Galway have. Ian Burke maybe didn't stand out as much as Damien Comer, but the man got his paws on so much ball. And Comer, lads, was a man on fire yesterday. It was very, very, very interesting to watch.
But Ian Burke, Tom, Ian Burke is the most selfless inside forward I've ever seen play. Like, all he wants to do, your second, Paddy. All he wants to do is get it, slip it, move, create space for other people. I think he is such a clever player. Friend of the pod, of course. He did a gig for us up in Dublin last year. But I just think his movement, his handling, his pass selection is always excellent. I think the shot he took at the post yesterday when he missed it late on, his shooting probably is the one thing that stops him from being probably top quality. But like, his brain is up there.
But is that so important, Jimmy? His style of play against defenses like that. You need nuance. Yeah. You need creativity. And that was we might touch on the Donegal performance yesterday. Like, Down was a really, really set defense, and Donegal just had no nuance. It was like around the arc, back and forth for 60 seconds. And then it was like a hot potato. Then someone was taking a shot from 45 yards out. You need someone to find the gaps, someone who's really sharp. And that's what Ian Burke, he complements Comer and Walsh really, really well.
And he wants to complement
them. Touch and go between himself and Finnerty, isn't it? Like, but in a game like that, he suits better than Finnerty.
It's probably going to be horses for courses for Joyce, and you can see the same with even with the goalkeeper. Like, Bernie Power went long with a lot of kickouts yesterday. Galway went long, was very obvious. I'm not sure how well that went for them.
Gleeson, he was forced long though, Tommy.
He definitely was, but Gleeson going short, he can go short off both feet. I think he's a bit underrated in that regard of his goalkeeping. So he probably has options there. Now in the middle,
injured, was he? Was Gleeson injured yesterday, Tom?
No, I don't think so. No, he was talked out.
A tactical change. That's surprising, though.
Yeah, and Burke was obviously a tactical change too. Finnerty come on, and Walsh went to 11. So I don't know whether we could possibly see it in some games this year.
They do have a lot of options there.
Yeah, there is.
Finnerty can pull the trigger late in games when they need a point or two. Like in the All-Ireland final last year, they went a long patch there without scoring. Shane Walsh got tired, obviously, after an unbelievable game. Comer was kind of out of it, and Finnerty came off, and Conroy came off. But if they have a kicker to come in late in games, I think, like, to get those one or two scores. But with Burke, what I always think, when you're thinking about kicking the ball as a team, a harder skill than kicking the ball is receiving the ball. Like, there's more to it. There's your run, there's catching eyes with the fella kicking it, there's where your man is, where the space is, your handling. Like, there's a lot to it. And Burke can just get free so easily. Just finds himself in space. His man is never up his arse either. It's always separation. He's brilliant at that. And he always dishes it to Walsh and Comer. I think the boys would love playing with him. Definitely Walsh, because if Walsh comes off the shoulder, he'll get shots off.
He's very elusive. Like, that's if a team has 12 or 13 bodies back inside their 45, you need a player like that. I agree with Jimmy. I think he's a perfect foil, and selfless is the perfect word for him. Like, the shooting, I think that'll come. Like I know that shot. I'd say if he took that 90 more times, he'd score it.
He's tired.
But if he brings that into his game, and that's Galway. What I seen from him yesterday, and even through the league, even poor enough against Mayo. Galway look like they've improved again on last season.
Yeah,
they are trending in the right direction. Sean Kelly is some bit of stuff, boys, isn't he?
Like we didn't even see the best player.
Leader.
Yeah, didn't even see.
But Dermot Murtle shot the lights out for the Rossies against Mayo, and Kelly just goes to town on him. He gets a brilliant block on Enda Smith. Enda Smith goes in full forward, has a chance when the Rossies are going for a goal late on. It's Sean Kelly getting a block. But Dylan McHugh, Carl Sweeney, like, they've lost obviously Malloy from last year and Silk. But those players that were there, they seem to have moved to another level again. Mm-hmm. And they've got a bit more depth as well. But they'll be worried about that third quarter, definitely, because they lost control of that and the Rossies got hot. But I thought overall, they controlled that game really, really well. And they just seem like they're building experience to win these type of games, and a little bit of depth, lads. They are going to be, not that we didn't know already, but they are going to be right in the mix come what business end the championship.
The one thing that
go on, James.
Defensively for Galway, I think they were kind of holding their 5 and 7 wing backs kind of central there, so they were stopping any kind of wave of attacks and ball being kicked in, but they left Kieran Murtagh free.
And he had a good day.
We were saying about half forward lines and getting shots off. You'd expect maybe 2 or 3. I think he got 1-6.
He did, yeah.
From 10.
1-3 from play, yeah. And he had a couple of wides as well.
Yeah, like that's the one thing maybe that I'd be a bit concerned about for Galway, or maybe something to work on. That if a half forward like that is that creative, someone's going to have to push out in him, be it a midfielder. Maybe McDade might be a great option to do that for midfield, but someone had to get tight in him and they never did.
The other thing,
but you know what, Jimmy? But if you look before the game, right, you'd have said Enda Smith and Dermot Murtagh, standout players, and Galway completely nullified them. Enda Smith comes into a little bit in the second half, but they put John Maher, who I think has been a big find for them. He's not the most, he's not the silkiest player, but he's very effective. He even gets 2 points yesterday, but they take Enda Smith out of the game completely, and Dermot Murtagh, it's like Sean Kelly, go and take him out. So they have the ability to go and do that. In game, yeah, I agree, because like the Rossies, what was 1-3 without reply, they get their noses in front in that third quarter. It's more in game, they need to stamp that out, because again, if you do that against the Kerry or Dublin, the game could be gone from you. And to be fair, they get a bit lucky with the shot back off the post and Comer's goal, and then they kind of control the game the whole way home. But I think they have the tools to shut players out as well. But definitely, it's a good place for Joyce to be in, I think, that they've won that game and they've loads to work on. They'll focus all over that third quarter. And I think their own kick out. You were saying they're going long tee. I think Roscommon were really well set to force them long, and they had loads of bodies around the middle. So,
yeah. They went long.
I think that sorry, Tom, just one more thing. Do you know they have, as you said, the way Conroy balled
Peter Cook
out of it.
Yeah.
I think this Shane Walsh is operating on a level that he's not being balled out of it in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like he did that crossfield pass in the second half. He's done that before, as Eamon said. Like that's a risky move. If you add that to a couple of things he's done, I think, someone like Conroy needs to get a hold of him and say, you're so important to us here. Cut those little things out and we'll take us on to a new level.
He's been like that, Jimmy, for years, hasn't he?
Can I make a point on that, though? Because, like, Walsh is clearly, maybe he's frustrated. He took a couple of pot shots. That crossfield ball is crazy. But he does lay on a brilliant hand pass at one stage where he drags 2 men towards him and puts it into the space. And it's a key score for Galway. If you look at the Clare game, Keelan Sexton kicks a couple of points again that he had no right to kick, way outside the scoring zone, but he was on it and he did it. Sometimes don't a team need a player that can just do that? Do you not just have to live with that sometimes? If there's a fella like a Shane Walsh.
That's what I mean. We had it with Connolly. Like we had it with Connolly, you're trying to talk to him and it's like he's doing his own thing, and you have to take that as a team, that the pros outweigh the cons. But Shane Walsh he's not 20, like, you know what I mean? He's been around a long time. I remember, was it 3 years ago when they were relegated against Monaghan and Clonus? We had this conversation around Shane Walsh kind of just switching off. It's like it comes too easy to him at times. And if he hasn't changed that aspect of his game now, I think it's very difficult that he would. But I think he had a great battle with Brian Stack yesterday, and Stack did a brilliant job again. He's having a really, really good season. But I think Walsh, like, he a load of possessions. When Galway are coming out and they're coming around the arc, having himself and Kelly and Conroy, your best players on the ball. That's set. There's a reason there at the top. That is not happening just by chance. And the couple of shots he misses yesterday, they're the ones he nails in the All-Ireland final last year. He has that in the locker. Like when Peter Cook has his Hail Mary, you're thinking, you can see why he's been questioned over that. But Walsh has the capabilities. And there's days where he'll have those shots, like an All-Ireland final, he's going to nail every one of them. So I think you're going to get that little bit of inconsistency in his game. And that's where it's so important to have Comer and Conroy, the really, really solid players who are exceptional players in their own right. But Walsh is mercurial, as we would say.
It is.
And you have to take that.
James, would you not have been given a bit more leeway to take shots and take efforts on?
Definitely not. With your players, not a hope. Less, because they probably know that you could do anything. In your head, you're thinking this fella could swing it over his shoulder, a ridiculous shot. As fellow players, you almost have to lean on, as you said, the mercurial players a bit more, I think. Because if you leave them completely to their own devices, their decision-making can be a little bit off in the hot moments. That's why just be concerned of a little bit. The fella with the cool heads need to call the shots as much as possible, especially late in games.
Okay.
And you have to be able to give anybody it between the eyes and tell them exactly how it is. Like kick and freeze, maybe with your strong leg all the time is non-negotiable from now on, or crossfield balls late in games are non-negotiable now. Like you have to be able to say to these fellas, no matter how good they are, they might have all the skills in the world, but their decision-making late in games might be the thing.
But that's, I'd say that I've no doubt those conversations are happening and have happened with him in the past. It's the mercurial lads. It's whether it sinks in or not. that's the challenge. I've no doubt Pádraig Joyce would have had these conversations with Shane Walsh, and I'm pretty sure Paul Connery would have given them like those crossfield passes. My God, if that was in just an example back on our team, there would be war in the dressing room over that. It would be, because it can cost you, and they've kind of gotten away with it. But Galway are absolute bullseye on winning the All-Ireland this year, and if they were to lose against a Dublin or a Kerry or someone in Croke Park later in the year for just being sloppy, they would not forgive themselves. They wouldn't forgive. It's all right if you're beaten by a better team or you just run out of puff, whatever it might be. Like last year's All-Ireland final, Kerry just have that bit more experience. Galway have ticked a lot of those boxes over the last 2 years, and for them to lose it by just being sloppy, that would be, or there'd be blood in the streets in Galway if that was the case.
You definitely got the sense afterwards. Joyce took his time to chat after the game. I'd say it was 45 minutes. He had a shower. I think he cooled down a bit. He spoke to the lads in the dressing room, and then he came out to talk to the press. I don't know if this is a new thing or certain managers do that to kind of cool down a bit beforehand. But like Joyce, you got the sense, wasn't taking that for granted. He wasn't too happy that Conor Carroll, you could see him in the first half, was getting all of his short kickouts away down the middle. So that was something that didn't really work for them. You mentioned their long kickouts.
That was good from the Rossies, though.
Very good from the Rossies.
I thought the Rossies on both kickouts were very, very good. How they were shutting down Galway. Galway went into a spine in the middle of the pitch, and the Rossies kind of had an arc around them, knowing it was just homework, it was preparation. And on their own kickout as well, Galway were trying to play zonal on it, and the Rossies were flooding back and getting guys in between the gaps. It was really smart play by them. And to be fair to Conor Carroll, I think he did another excellent game on his kickouts. But Galway, that was an area that they'll definitely look at.
Just on Roscommon, Enda Smith had a tough day for a good bit of that game until he pushed further inside. Maher wasn't comfortable following him in around the half forward line or the full back line. Why didn't Roscommon push Enda Smith in and change that a lot earlier?
I'm trying to get him into the game, T. When they did, Galway adapted. That was a plus for them, like putting the likes of Sean Kelly in. And it was just, it's nearly exact opposite of what they did to Mayo and Castlebar 2 weeks before. Galway were so well prepped for that game. It was like, we're not playing it on Roscommon's terms. We know what they're going to try and do. We're actually going to control this game. We're going to keep the ball. And like Mayo kind of played into Roscommon's hands. They were so frantic, and it allowed Roscommon to get on the ball, and that allowed Enda Smith to be in the game. We touched on it. If a game is going away from you, your work rate can nearly keep you in it. But it's even hard for that to work if the opponent is keeping the ball for 75% of the play. And like I say, it's not great to watch as a spectacle, but in terms of tactics, you need players who are comfortable on the ball to execute it, but you need total clarity of the 15 players on the pitch. They know exactly what their role is. And you could see that with Galway. And that's the contrast to some of the other teams when they're playing against this type of defence. They're not all on the same page. And that's where you start getting bad execution, bad decisions, and it allows the other team into it. Whereas with Galway, it was such a mature performance from them. They knew the threat of Enda Smith, that no matter where he played on the pitch, his possession count was just going to be so low because Galway were keeping the ball.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so Galway now go on to play Sligo in the Connacht final on Sunday, May 7th. So Sligo bet New York 2-16 to 6 points. New York go on to the preliminary round of the Tailteann Cup, so we won't see New York for a couple of weeks. We mentioned Kerry beating Tipperary by 20 points, 25-5. Spread in that game was 18 points, so kind of went as expected. James, you
did say that would be the most interesting game of the weekend, Jimmy, last week. Closely followed by the Dubs.
Was there anything interesting? Was there anything interesting in Killarney?
The programs were €4. I thought that was expensive. That was the main talking point. That was the main talking point. at halftime and post game was the price of the program. No, it was a tough game to watch. Now I must say, nothing really to be taken from it from Kerry. Although they got Stephen O'Brien in off the bench, they got Brian Begley in off the bench, and they got time into Rory Murphy. So they kind of got some time into those fellas. But Tipp knew they were in for hiding. They brought the keeper up. It was 4-1 after about 15 minutes, and they brought the keeper up to halfway to take a shot at the posts just to waste 30 seconds. He dropped a 25 meters short.
That is spectacular shithousery. I respect that, I have to say.
And
checking the wins.
It was tough. It was tough watching, but no, it was always kind of going to go that way, really, wasn't it? So not really to be said about it.
What did Tipp do with David Clifford? He only scored 2 frees. Shane O'Connell marked him. Did they have 2 or 3 men on him the whole time?
10 of them on him.
I suppose they had bodies back. All right, Kerry kind of had to work their scores, but the scores were not hard to manufacture from outside. So I think that once they knew where they were clipping scores from, they weren't kind of pushing the ball into Clifford too heavily. And he had a couple of shots just tailed off. All right, his kicking was a bit off, but they were getting the scores easy elsewhere. Okay.
We might be talking to David Clifford at some stage, so we'll see about that. Kerry go on to play Clare in the Munster final. We mentioned, hopefully, Clare's 3-point win against Limerick. That game looked like at one stage that Limerick were going to run away with it. Not run away with it, looked like they were going to edge it. And Clare kind of took over in the last 10 minutes, a couple of big moments, big block, a couple of big points going down the stretch. So Clare into their first Munster final since 2012, and they'll be taking on Kerry. So that the Munster and Connacht finals on the same day, Sunday, May the 7th. Armagh on Saturday, Beck-Cavan. Paddy, we might talk about that after the break. 114 to 12 points. They go on to play Down in the Ulster semi-final this weekend coming. So Armagh-Down is going to be this Sunday, and Monaghan-Derry is on Saturday. So Down bet Donegal on Sunday by 213 to 111. We'll be talking about that in a couple of moments. We've been speaking about Roscommon's 4-point defeat to Galway. And in Leinster, a couple of big results. We mentioned Louth Westmeath might be one of the games of the weekend. Louth were 8 points down at halftime.
I couldn't believe it.
Mickey Hart said they were just playing for pride in a second. Westmeath were full value for it. Westmeath should have been further ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that turnaround.
It was nearly like what Westmeath did to Meath a couple of years ago in Croke Park. Meath were 9 points up in the Leinster semi-final, and Westmeath came back and bet them in a dramatic game. But just that Louth team are just getting better and better, and they are full value.
But lads, what's it say about Westmeath like the kind of alarm bells were ringing that they didn't get out of Division 3, and we seen Fermanagh against Derry the week before. Like Westmeath are a better team than Fermanagh, but they lost a couple of these games that you're thinking, how have they managed to lose that? Without a doubt, Division 3 winning that and getting promoted to Division 2 was on their radar. So, okay, that didn't go well, and you're expecting then, right, to regroup and be ready for the championship. And it looked like that, to be 8 points up against a very defensive, loud setup. The challenge Mickey Hart's team presents, Westmeath were very comfortable with that. We know they've got quality players and just expected to control the game. Yeah, but to lose that's underperformance from Westmeath. There's no other way to describe it. That their season, a bad league, and now to lose that Leinster Championship game yesterday, that is a big surprise. They're a team we rated highly after their year last year, winning the Tailteann Cup, but that is a massive disappointment for them.
Do you know what? It was a bit similar to even from the Galway-Roscommon game. They were well up at halftime, and Roscommon came back into it second half, just like Louth came back into it. But Galway had the tools to take the sting out of the game and to work a score, like you said, Paddy, kind of play cute, do the right thing. It was like Westmeath didn't have the tools in the locker to be able to just kill that game as Louth were getting chance after chance after chance, you know, just to take the sting out of it. Because from looking at the game, Louth looked very well conditioned. Like they look physically very strong, fit. And they have a clear game plan. Like they're not going to be easily beaten. No. So still a great win for Louth, though, to be fair, after being 8-0.
Yeah, but doesn't it touch, lads? We've seen it over every weekend of the championships. Are momentum. You lose momentum if you can't wrestle it back. If you don't have the experience or the wherewithal or the in-game management to try and just wrestle back control, it's gone. It can go away from you like that. Yeah. Every weekend, we've seen it with Tyrone the week before. Obviously, with Westmeath yesterday, Galway, like I said, they have that experience. They can get it back because the Rossies for 10 minutes are like, this is phenomenal stuff, champagne football. But for Westmeath, clearly to be in that position and so dominant and to go away and lose in the second half. That's massive disappointment. But fair play to Louth, and they are going to fancy their chances of a Leinster final 100%. Because who are they playing, T? In the semis next week?
Louth are playing Offaly. Offaly have banished Meath to the Tailteann Cup, where they deserve to be. Offaly won 11, Meath 10 points. Meath kicked just 2 points in the first half. So what does that tell you?
If Offaly beat Louth and Dublin beat Kildare, which realistically will happen, then Kildare or Gonzo.
So Kildare and Cork are the two teams in bother if Offaly and Down both win and get to provincial finals. So at the moment,
but Kildare are first to go.
If Kildare lose to Dublin,
and Offaly beat Louth, then Kildare are gone. And if Down beat Armagh,
and Offaly beat Louth, Cork are gone too.
Down, the brilliant for Offaly, but I'd be surprised if they get over Louth. But for Meath, like I say, 2 points. They scored 10 points in total. We felt that this was a big banana skin potentially. They just have not been playing well. All the pluses that they had at the start of the season, where they win those first couple of National League games, was attack and play, kicking the ball, goals, creating goal chances. We knew they were suspect at the back. Their organisation, you felt, was kind of questionable, and their goals were getting them out of jail. They have dried up well and truly. And we said it last week, Jimmy, you were pretty heavy on it. If they lost the game, that would be a complete disaster for them. And it is. It really, really is. That they've somehow managed to hang on in their Division 2 status, but that was trending only one way. And that performance yesterday, they only scored 10 points. And if you look, beaten by the far better team, and Offaly, that is, it's tough going for the Royals, Tommy. There's no other way to dress that up, I'm afraid.
There really is.
They'll have to win the Tailteann to silver anything.
They are not going to win the Tailteann Cup.
They're not.
Well, I'll go on record and say that now. Yeah. They have got no chance.
No chance. And I would agree with you on that, Paddy. They aren't going to win the Tailteann Cup because I felt so sorry looking at Donald Keogan and maybe, Killian O'Sullivan, who have gone through their Meath careers and have given everything. And they just keep getting days like this. And that felt like in Adair yesterday. 4 lads made their debuts. 3 or 4 fellas probably have only played 3 times for me before. You talk about Westmeath having the tools to be able to resist that loud fight back in the second half. It felt like that Meath team just don't have the tools at the moment to hold off the external pressure and possibly adapt to whatever pressure's been put on them on the field. Because
to be fair, Tommy, in some semblance of defence for Colin O'Rourke and the management team of Meath, this is a long-term project. Meath were starting from a very, very low base. The challenge is how quickly you can implement this change, and you learn how to control games. You learn from experience. There's no shortcut to that. We've seen Galway; they would have been disappointed losing last year's All-Ireland final. A couple of previous years where they weren't performing, but they're learning along that journey. You need to hit some sort of markers along the way to keep the faith with it, to keep going, right, I believe what our workers doing. Okay, that's a setback, but there's some positivity there somewhere. You look at what Conor Laverty's done in Down.
That's the thing.
Like that win yesterday, even if they don't, and even though they didn't get promoted, there was performances that the Down players can look and say, okay, I believe in this guy. He's got credibility there. And their win yesterday against Donegal gives them that. Even if they don't go on and beat Armagh and they're in the Tailteann Cup, there's still so much positive things to hang their hat on and say, okay, there's progress. Now we're ready to give even more to Conor Laverty. Meath have not got that. They were never going to be Leinster champions. They were trying to get promoted to Division 1, was not really on their radar. But what their level of success was pretty low, and they haven't achieved that. So it leaves
they're
the
easy
atmosphere.
To beat. They're easy to beat.
Easy to beat.
The first thing to
play against.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a big ask to try and turn that around. Like, where do they go from there? They would have expected to beat Offaly. I think the way they decided to draw, maybe getting to a Leinster final, I'm sure would have been a target for them, but they have fallen way, way short of that.
When you say they would have expected to beat Offaly, I'm not sure how much.
I wouldn't have been sure of it, but I think they would have been in the camp. They would have been targeted to beat Offaly, and if they weren't, Tommy, well, that's a problem in the first.
Well, that's the problem. The word that the camp hasn't been happy over the last couple of weeks, and they've been struggling with injuries to keep players. There've been players dropped.
They wouldn't want to be happy.
there's been like Anthony Moyle spoke about it this morning. Owen Harkin started the game against Kildare, a must-win game, final league game of the year. He's dropped, and 2 players who didn't play any minutes in the league are starting the first championship game 3 weeks later. So it's just very messy at the minute in Meath, and I think
the thing is, Tom, is
we might leave it at
like,
that.
With those teams,
go on, Jimmy, go on.
No, I'm not going to throw the boot in anymore. But with those level teams, 3 group games in the All-Ireland series would bring you on so much in a development phase. Like you could hear Colin Collins talk about it with Clare, that their development, they needed to be playing top teams in that group rather than playing Tailteann and not improving.
I actually don't think Meath need that this year. I think if Meath were in the All-Ireland series, they would be ripped asunder this year because all the evidence. But no, all the evidence we've seen. Because I'll put it to you this way:
they're not good enough.
Put it to you this way, right? And it's the last thing I'm saying about Meath. Between July 2019, when Meath were in their Super 8s and their Division 1 campaign the following year, they played 10 Division 1 sides. They didn't win a single one of those games, but I would argue with anyone that they were competitive in nearly all of them. I think they lost some games by a point, 4 points, 3 points. They were competitive in those 10 games. Those 10 games against Division 1 oppositions were more games against Division 1 opposition than Meath had played in the previous decade, right? They could compete in those games. This Meath team cannot compete against Division 1 opposition. They are not able to. They're not ready for it. There's no format there. There's no structure to their setup. The players aren't good enough. So it's actually a good thing for the future of Meath football that they're in the Tailteann Cup this year, because it was going to be so bad if they got into the round robin. It was going to be that.
I knew you'd put a positive spin on it, Tommy. Only you could put a positive spin on the Royals getting knocked out by Athlone in the next championship. But I agree with you.
That wasn't positive.
That's not what you said offline there 20 minutes.
I'd rage it. Look, she's rattled.
Look at the Chuckle Brothers having that. In the other quarter final, Wicklow had reduced the gap against Kildare to 3 points with 10 minutes to go. Kildare pulled away later on. Dara Kerwin looked like he had a cracking game, and Paddy Woodgate got his first goal for Kildare on his first championship start. So Kildare won that game by 10 points. They go on to face the Dubs, who racked up 4-30 against Laois. Laois kicked 2-9 in the end. 4-30. The scary thing about the Dubs, I think the bench was Howard, Scully, Rock. I have to get the other 2, but it was a fairly awesome bench that came in. Jack McCaffrey started. Paul Mannion started. Conor Callahan kicked 1-5. Kilkenny scored a goal. Colin Basquel ran the show, Paddy, from 11. Did you watch this game, or did you?
No, God, no.
You took the eyes off it. You had no interest.
I'm doing both the Leinster semi-finals this weekend. Okay. Obviously, I've watched a lot of Dublin, and it's seen the reaction to this from a wider angle. This is the issue with the provincial championships. I think Munster and Leinster, there are going to be these type of games where they're a bit of a disaster, and that's why the structure's changed. So we've kept the provincial championships just for the legacy of it, but the All-Ireland series is the ultimate. So I think that's a good thing from GAA, and I've seen a lot of people giving out about the provincial championships. We've had some brilliant games.
We have.
We had what's happened in Connacht, the Ulster Championship as well. Like you look at Westmeath and Louth yesterday, there are brilliant games in it, but there are going to be these mismatches, and that's why the system's changed. So you kind of just have to grin and bear it. And that's you could see, despite Jimmy trying to big up Tipp and Kerry last week, we knew these games were going to be an absolute disaster from a spectacle point of view, and they were. For Dublin specifically, the last couple of years they haven't won Leinster Championship games like this. They've won the Leinster Championships, they're kind of stuttering through. Yesterday, racking up that score like that, the bit of depth that you've outlined there in the squad, it's like a throwback to our team 3 or 4 years ago. We were putting up big scores. It shows a team that's just a little bit slicker, and there's confidence in them now. We knew they'd get that after their kind of second half demolition of Derry. So a box ticked for Dublin. They move on. They play Kildare on Sunday in Croke Park. The big thing for them is just to get through this window with no injuries to key players, and be primed for the All-Ireland series in next month. Yeah. But there's not a whole pile else for them to take from that.
We're going to look at the 2 semi-finals after the break. James, go on.
No, did you see Paul Gavin had a tweet up? He just put I'm just looking at it here. He said he watched 2 games the weekend, a Dublin club match and Dublin county match, but he put up an AVB lineup from Dublin, and he reckons they're the strongest squad in the country. But Like they are, every name is familiar and every name is clearly quality, but it's mad like that. How do they kind of stutter through the league when they have this quality? Like what, Paddy, do you have any idea what their training schedule was, or like
it's just like Jimmy,
you can
it's
literally
now,
see 30 so familiar names. Like if you have to name any other county from player 21 down, you would never have heard of him. You'd know 40 fellas here, no problem. Like
it's just like the team's been on the road a long time, and the National League, they were going to get promoted from Division 2 no matter what. Realistically, they didn't have to come in there all guns blazing from the get-go, like say Davy Burke with the Rossies in Division 1. So their timing was building towards championship. There's a lot of guys there who have a lot of miles on the clock. That's why they're so familiar. So you're going to pick up knocks and niggles and things like that throughout the league. The key thing, and I said this, and no shit housery here, I think if Dublin have their best 15 players on the pitch come championship, I think they'll win the All-Ireland. I said that from day one. The big challenge, and not just Dublin, I think for a lot of the top teams, if there's one or two key injuries, then it's wide open. But if they have their best 15 and there's no injuries to those guys, I think they're a team to beat. That's not, honest to God, my opinion on it, but we've seen it last year. They missed Conor O'Callaghan against Kerry. What a massive difference that makes. But yesterday was a positive thing, and that's what I mean. The next 3 or 4 weeks, no disrespect to Kildare or Louth or Offaly on the other side, the Leinster Championship is about getting through the next 3 or 4 weeks, no injuries. You can see the fitness building and the sharpness. And that was the key thing you took from yesterday. Not against great opposition, obviously, but the rack up 430, it shows their patterns of play, their skill execution is really good, and it's getting back to what it is. So, but you're right, Jimmy. They're timing it.
The only area that they don't have household names is the full back line.
Yeah, these are always after that full back line, Jimmy. You've been after that full back line for 15 years, like.
No, they had Cooper, Philly, Fitzsimons when he was in his pomp. But
Philly's still waiting for a text when he's tied up with the BBC.
Everywhere else they're loaded, but like you can't build a house on that foundation.
So like, you've gone from 60 seconds ago saying they're unbeatable to now you're back.
No, I didn't. I never said that.
Jack O'Connor just texted you there.
No, because I tweeted back to Paul. I was like, they're all unbelievably recognizable names, but I wonder, in terms of the top quality that G had, I don't think that they're there yet. He's always on about how they're building, and a massive panel, a massive squad. But
it's like a Kerry forum you lads have on Twitter or something, is it? Mark O'Shea was saying at the weekend as well. He's like, the Dubs. It's all on the Dubs.
In fairness, Paul lives above. He's above in Dublin watching the games, but no, it's just interesting because they have so many household names, but you just wonder, have they got to that top quality level?
Time will tell.
There'll be plenty of time to talk about that, and I think we could do some comparisons on the Galway depth and the Kerry depth as well, and see who has the best A versus B teams. We might do that during the week. You are listening to episode 15 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. We're actually going to have a bonus episode later this week, so I think we'll keep the identity of our special guest, a secret, and we'll let you know maybe on Wednesday. So keep an eye out in the Football Pod feed for that. Make sure you're subscribed. You probably are if you're listening, so just make sure you're subscribed. We're going to be back right after the break with a special announcement. A lot of news here in the Football Pod of our special guest in Killarney at our live show on Thursday, May the 4th. Stay tuned. We're back after this. You are very welcome back to episode 15 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. Can I get a drum roll, please? We'll take the Led Zeppelin music in the background. Special guest in Killarney, former teammate of James, former foe of Paddy Andrews, and also a colleague on the old GA Go. Mark O'Shea is joining us as our special guest at our live.
You can't do a gig in Kerry without one of the O'Shea's
Southern Hotel. And just to let you know, lads, there is very few tickets left. We're talking in the teens. That's how many tickets are left this weekend. We're in the Great Southern Hotel. So if anyone is on the fence about going, or you want to go just for Mark O'Shea, snap them up right now because they're going to be sold out. And that'll be it. We might run a competition for a pair of tickets on the Football Pod page as well. James, are you excited? I know Paddy was talking to Mark at the weekend. Are you excited to have Mark O'Shea at our road.
I am. No, Mark would be brilliant. He's just a personality. Mark, he just has loads of great stories now from all the different. He played in a couple of different Kerry teams as well. You know, he had a full kind of array of the experience of the intercounty player, from probably coming where the science part of it wasn't the main part to the very end where it was everything.
Put it mildly.
Be interesting to see what he thinks of that. But oh God, I said on the pod before, going training when I was younger and marking Mark O'Shea was just demoralizing. Like, you go into training,
you're not excited for
genuine, you wouldn't. No, you were excited the first time, and after that, then it's downhill from there. Really, like he just knew where the ball was going all the time to stop you getting it. So, in terms of defending, I reckon the most natural defender I've ever come across, anyway. And top fella, funny man. I can't wait to have him on the show.
Did Mark O'Shea ever leave you on your arse with a solo dummy?
Because I'd have had to go for a block. I'd have had to go for a block to be sold a dummy.
He had it in the back pocket.
I was shepherding.
I wouldn't say, Jimmy, I wouldn't say you were going for diving blocks now, to be fair.
Paddy, did you ever mark?
No, I was ushering down the wing.
Did I? I don't think
was he ever marked?
No, he used to take Burno a lot when we played. And he was kind of coming towards the end as I was coming more into the team as well. I think his last year, 13 and 14, he played, and then he was gone by 15, was he? Or was he still 15. There? In 15?
No, he played 15. He hurt his hamstring actually a fortnight before the final against Dublin. I think he got a black card in the semi-final against Tyrone.
Yeah.
And a black card at that time was you're gone.
Just for the game. Yeah.
I think it was you were substituted off. So he got a black card in the semi. I think he pulled his hammer then just before the final.
It's funny you say that, like, before our team had won back-to-back, the only team to do it that century was that Kerry team in 06, 07. I think he was player of the year in 07 as well. As a cornerback, like, the three O'Sheas were absolutely incredible, but as just pure skill levels for a cornerback, he was absolutely off the charts. Like, Rolls Royce player, like, like I said, you can't get down to Kerry with at least one of the O'Sheas sticking their oar in for a gig, but he'd be very, very good crack. Great to listen to the stories, like, as Jimmy said, kind of coming from different generations of GAA, but himself as a player in his own right, off the charts good. And we had a bit of a laugh now on Saturday covering the games. He'll be box office. The ideal guest for the football pod.
Perfect,
he'll have the crack. He'll know the story. Exactly. And I think the crowd will love it as well. So looking forward to it.
We're really looking forward to having him there. And you'll have a great night with us, whoever's going. We had Michael Meehan at our show last year in Dublin, and we had Keith Higgins in Castlebar, and we had loads of great stories and crack with the lads. So it'll be similar again this Thursday week. So keep an eye as well out on Wednesday or Thursday. I mentioned we'll have a special episode with a big guest this week, so keep an eye out for that. Let's look at this weekend's semi-finals. Yeah, that's nothing to do with the roadshow, but it's going to be an interesting interview. This weekend semi-finals, there's a quick turnaround for Armagh-Down, so we might start with that. We're going to have our Leinster semi-finals and our Ulster semi-finals. We already have our Munster final pairing and our Connacht final pairing. So Saturday, 5 o'clock, Healy Park, Derry take on Monaghan, and Sunday 4 p.m, Armagh take on Down. A point about Down's win against Donegal. Conor Laverty took over this year. He's got them playing a style of football. When Down went out with a whimper in the Tailteann Cup last year to Cavan, one Kilcoo player started that game. Niall Kane in goals. Throughout the league, a couple of them were sprinkled back in to the Down setup. At the weekend, 6 Kilcoo players started for Down and 2 were on the bench. So Laverty has put a stamp on it. It's not all Kilcoo. He's obviously unleashed a couple of others. He also held back Oran Murdoch, one of their most impressive players in the league, to play under-20s championship this week. They're in the Ulster final against Derry. So he more than likely won't be playing at the weekend either. We talked about Armagh a little earlier, Paddy. Would you be worried for Armagh facing a downside that seems to be finely tuned under Laverty at the minute?
I think it's going to be a really good game. Like I say, I think Armagh have got a little bit of a bounce from their disappointing end to the spring, and they've got their key players back. Reid O'Neill, obviously, it was a question, was he going to be back in 2 weeks? Was he going to be back in 2 months? For him to get games come at the weekend was positive. I'm intrigued by this game. Down are not going to fear them at all. If you look at Armagh, their performance, the positive things from their win in Cavan on Saturday night, the shape they had up front, they're back to playing a little bit more recognisable what we seen from them last year in terms of moving the ball really quick and kick passing the ball. The fast transitions are back. And I thought they were at their poorest during the league, where it was really, really ponderous. But Conor Turbot and Murnan inside, you're crying out for someone to complement Rian O'Neill with scores. And because he's been injured, McGeeney's hand has nearly been forced to play these guys. But Turbot has hit, I think, 8 points against Antrim, 7 points the other night. There's just an outlet there. Fire. They trust him. They trust him, and they're kicking the ball, and their transitions are hurting teams. And it's back to Armagh being really, really good. And like you say, to get Rian O'Neill for 20 minutes, he didn't have much of an impact in an attacking sense. Obviously, his incredible goal save was his main highlight, but he'll be a lot better.
He played inside
for this.
He played inside a lot. Will he start him full forward with Turbot alongside him?
I think he'll drift. It'll be the Michael Murphy stuff. He'll be inside and he'll be outside at different times. Particularly, you look at the style Down are going to play, and we'll touch on Down now in a second. But I think Armagh will be favourites for this game on the basis that O'Neill is back and they're getting back to playing that kind of exciting brand of football. So there was loads of positives for them from Saturday night. Cavan just weren't at the races. For Down, like, it's not just the kill thing. Laverty has a really, really set way of playing. They conceded all the kickouts against Donegal yesterday. Got off to a bad start. Jason McGee gets a goal 2 or 3 minutes in, and you're thinking they're a relatively inexperienced team. How is that going to impact Down? But to be fair, there is no budging from their game plan. They'll give you the kickout. It's really attritional. They get everybody back. They'll try and frustrate the opponents. And Donegal did not deal with that well yesterday. They're inexperienced themselves. But that style of play is hard to play against for Armagh, so they're going to face that challenge. And Down, the one thing they have, we're talking about Mickey Hart and Louth, they are fit. They are well conditioned. They get bodies back down the pitch, and then they fly up the pitch as well. They have a little bit of magic. Ryan Johnston, Liam Kerr's goal yesterday as well. Blistering pace. So just savage pace. And that is so valuable in the modern game. So they will ask questions. They'll ask questions of that Armagh team. But their style of play, it was really effective yesterday. We're basically saying to Donegal, have the ball. We will let you have it because we don't trust you're going to be able to break us down, particularly without Ryan McHugh or McBrearty with long-range shooting. I think that game plan has limitations. We've covered that numerous times in the past. But in terms of progress for Laverty, talk about a team that's bought into a style of play. They're conditioned. They're so well organised. And they'll fancy their chances against Armagh, but I think they'll fall short of this game, but you can't say there hasn't been savage progress from where, look, a basket case last year. The running joke we had on the podcast of how bad they were last year. So savage strides made from Conor Laverty. And yesterday was like vindication of what he's done over the last couple of months.
Yeah, and they're doing this without Caelan Mooney and a few other key players. So go on, Jess.
I think that Laverty as well, he's like a kind of a new style coach. I think he'll approach that game to break Armagh offensively and defensively. And if you look at the way he sets up teams, he won't let Armagh kick the ball. I think that's going to be his main thing.
They'll have the bodies back, yeah.
Yeah, like we know that Armagh want to kick it and are brilliant to watch when they kick it. And they have hands and kickers. And it's beautiful football. And that's exactly what Laverty will love to break down. He's going to have them primed to be picking off those balls and counterattacking them. So it's going to be a very interesting game that way. I agree. I think that Armagh are well set. I think they're improving. They've found a bit of confidence. Once one or two forwards catch fire as well, it transforms a team. Yeah. So I'm enjoying seeing Armagh, but it's going to be a very interesting game. I think that Laverty will just thrive on kind of picking apart Armagh. I just think he's that kind of manager, which is going to be so interesting to watch.
I wonder how much time he's going to have because he's obviously double jobbing this year. He's manager of the Derry under-20s
this week,
as well, and they played Derry on Wednesday night in the Ulster under-20 final.
But you know what you'll see
the turnaround? It's very, very
from
tough.
Both teams. To Armagh Down, they are really, really well conditioned. They can get up and down the pitch at pace. I agree with James in terms of Armagh will want to try and hit Turbot and Murnan. That's an X factor, and have to have Rian O'Neill coming off them as well. That's a real positive for Armagh. But Down, their setup yesterday, they get everyone back. Like, I'm not a big fan of conceding kickouts, but to be fair to them, they didn't deviate from that at all. Even when, particularly that first quarter, Donegal looked like they had control of the game. They backed themselves, and down the stretch, they just blew Donegal away. So their fitness isn't going to be that bad.
Donegal put up a show.
Well, I thought up front they
had a lot of wide.
It was an interesting thing. I was watching obviously in BBC, and it was there wasn't a player in the Donegal panel yesterday over 30 years of age. So they're a really, really young team. They lose Michael Lang an injury to a hamstring injury, but obviously kind of carrying that going in. But without Murphy, obviously, but Paddy McBrearty, Ryan McHugh, they're Donegal's 3 best players of the last decade are gone. There's all the upheaval off the pitch. So that inexperience probably cost Donegal, and they start forcing these shots. And that's what I mean. It was brave from Laverty and Down. They're kind of saying, we actually don't think you're good enough to break us down. So we let you have the ball out there.
Yeah.
And Donegal, very similar to what Cavan did the night before, they just start launching long-range shots, and it wasn't working for them. But I think for Donegal, because it's probably the last word we really have on them for a while, they are not at the top table anymore. I think that's clear after a kind of decade of competing for Ulster Championships and All-Irelands. It's going to be a couple of years before we see Donegal back competing in Division 1, competing to win Ulster Championships. There's a massive turnover in their squad. And I suppose the challenge for them is, do they stick with it? Is Aidan O'Rourke and Paddy Bradley, are they the men to bring it forward for the next 2 or 3 years? Because it is going to be a transitional phase. They're not going to be competing for Ulster titles. I think that was clear from yesterday. You could see that. Whereas down on the other side, they made the call to bring in Laverty at the end of last season. And they're nearly like a season ahead of Donegal in terms of their transition. So it can turn around quickly. But for Donegal, that was a team going down. And for Down, it was a team coming up. It was just 2 teams going different directions yesterday, and it was really, really clear by the end of that game in Port Kessler.
Yeah. James, how do you see Armagh-Down going?
Well, it'd be interesting to see what they do with Rian O'Neill, because if they're going to have to pick off shots, if Armagh are going to have to pick off shots from maybe a bit deeper and maybe not go into the full forward line as often, he's the perfect foil to have out there, dictating play, taking some long range shots. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do there. Can Turba keep up his form? I say he's kicked 8, 7. Even if he just goes for 6, it'd be on a serious vein of power.
How good was he? How good was he at the weekend?
He was really good.
He was very good.
Faulkner was picking him up as well, who was like a big leader for Cavan. But there was just loads of space. And that was another thing you see in the Division 3, the gap, the intensity. Cavan wanted to try and get bodies back, but Armagh were just moving it so quickly. And if you're on the full forward, like Jimmy, we played there, they're getting quick ball. The opposition can't get back. And there were so many times Armagh were looking for a long kick pass, and Turbot was getting the ball in space. And like I said, the partnership he had with Murnan, he's really sharp. You can just see he's confident as well now. But Cavan,
you don't think you'll get that space this weekend, James?
I don't think you will. I think Cavan did not deal with it well, whereas I think Laverty will have Down. Space will be a far more of a premium this weekend. But I thought a sharpness, and Armagh were playing to his strengths. That was why it was another positive performance from him. Yeah,
he's very good at kind of working the space to pull the trigger. Like, that's a massive skill, to be able to work your feet and get the shot off. But it's interesting. Say if you're defending a team that are going kind of long, you've 2 options. You can either get in the kicker's face who's delivering the ball and get in their eye line and stop them picking the pass, or you can do the low block, as they call it in soccer, and have everyone kind of back around the full forward line or the full back line. So I think that Down will probably leave Armagh have the ball in a lot of space out the field, and just put the bodies back in the full back line. So I think the shots from around maybe 40, 45 yards are going to be on for them, for Armagh. So that could be the winning of the game if they get their kickers out there instead.
Yeah, we're going to go quickly through the other games here. We get stuck into them, reviewing them next Monday on the Football Pod. Derry-Monaghan in the other semi-final. Feels like we're sleeping on this a little bit because it's so tight from the Armagh-Down performances at the weekend.
What channel is that on at the weekend?
GAGO.
All right.
I actually don't know. I'm asking you.
No. I do think you're correct. I do think it's on GAGO.
Are you at it?
I will be. Yep.
Okay, good stuff. I thought you were doing the Leinster semi-finals.
They're on Sunday. I'm working my balls off this weekend. Oh,
Annie
man.
Andrews.
But every match, like Marty Morrissey. Showbiz.
I'll be outside.
I'm looking forward to this one, I have to say.
Yeah, we'll have to give me a minute on this because we're tight on time.
I think Derry are going to win it. I think it was an incredible turnaround from Monaghan against Tyrone, but I would have Derry ahead of the pecking order than this Monaghan team. Again, I can't wait to see what McManus does against the really set defence. Can he keep going back to the well and doing it? Jack McCarron will be under. He'll have been really disappointed with his performance the last day to come off the pitch. He lost his battle with Pádraig Campsey. He'll have something to prove, a point to prove for Monaghan. But Derry are going to be so well organised. We say this about them all the time. They'll be gunning for this Ulster Championship to go back to back again. I think Derry are a better team than Monaghan. Even with Monaghan's unbelievable turnaround, the match of the season so far against Tyrone, I fancy Derry in this one at the weekend.
Be interesting to see Chrissy McCaig on McManus, won't it?
Yeah,
McCaig didn't look. He obviously has had his injury problems. He didn't look his sharpest against Fermanagh. He got taken for a couple of chances, even a goal chance, a couple of points. So that'll be interesting. McManus will fancy his chances in that battle, but that'll probably be the defining stat. Whoever wins that battle, and if Derry cannot foul and leave McManus kick Monaghan through the game, I think the Derry should have enough that they'll control the game. They won't. We know what they're going to do. They're not going to break fast. They're going to slow the pace down, attack slowly. It'll be an interesting game, but it's hard to call it. I mean, Monaghan have high hopes. They'll have a serious renewed vigor about them. I'm kind of falling with you, Paddy. I think that Derry just seem to have a monopoly in Ulster at the moment, where they know how to pick teams apart. Yeah. It'll be interesting, but I fancy Derry.
I'm starting to get flashbacks now to early on. I'm afraid that I said the Monaghan were already third seeds earlier on. Apologies if I said that.
You were right. A few people after you threw down under the bus as well.
Down under the bus. I've been backing down.
You did. You had Armagh in a seeds as well, as if they were going to win it the weekend as well.
Okay, yeah. No, I was saying that
you can edit it later on.
They're the possibilities. I'm not editing anything. They're the possibilities that can happen this week. So, the confirmed third seeds are Mayo, Roscommon, and Tyrone, and one of Armagh or Monaghan are probably what we're going to see in the third seeds. It's decided by league placements. Monaghan last year, Derry had an explosive first half, got 2 goals, scored 3 overall. Monaghan kicked 17 points against Derry. Monaghan put it back to 3 points at one stage last year in the second half. They started very slowly. Are we writing Monaghan off a bit too quickly?
Well, that's not writing them off. You're asking who do you think's going to win the game. Yeah. It's got to be a really, really close game. I expect big games from Ethan Doherty and McGuigan up front. I think Monaghan will find it harder for scores against that set defence. I agree. I think McCaig would pick up McManus. Like, if you look at Monaghan, they finished the game unbelievably well, obviously. Kind of fairy tale stuff to win against Tyrone. For 40 minutes of that game, Tyrone were absolutely annihilated them. You know, and that's where Tyrone's in ill discipline to keep Monaghan in the game, hanging in there, but McManus kicking frees. You would think Derry and how they're coached and how they're so minute on these details that they won't fall into that trap again. And that's why I think I'm not writing them off, Monaghan. Yes, I do think it will be close, but I think Derry will. I think there's just too much for this in this game.
That's fair. Okay,
it'll be tight though. It'll be a classic. You'll have to tune in.
We have a minute. Are we calling the Dublin Louth Leinster final? Is it going to be that straightforward on Sunday in Croke Park?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think Dublin will give Kildare a good tipping. I can't see Kildare coming within 10 of Dublin.
Okay. 10.
I think that, yeah. I was actually hoping that Kildare would put down a marker against Wicklow and really put them to the sword. But there was only a couple of points in that game for a lot of the second half.
There was, yeah.
Until Woodgate got the goal. And Louth, I think that Louth, look, their conditioning looks brilliant. They have a bit of confidence. Great result in Division 2 up to third. I think that they'll be strong favourites against Offaly.
I think Offaly will struggle to break down that really tight set defence that Louth have, and I think their condition will probably get them over the line as well. Brilliant win for Offaly to get over Meath, but Louth will talk about a team really well organised. Everyone knows what they're doing. They're confident. Meath were the exact opposite of that. So as good as a win as it was yesterday for Offaly, I don't think they're going to have enough to break down this Louth team on Sunday in Croke Park.
We definitely didn't give Offaly the credit they deserved a little earlier on. So apologies to all Offaly people that I am from Meath and that we kind of focused on that one. So we'll leave that at that. Lads, great to chat this week. We had 10 games to get through. It was hectic. There's 4 next weekend. There's also 3 under-20 finals. Sligo won the Connacht Championship last weekend. A brilliant win.
What a speech.
Unbelievable.
I loved it.
We bet all the big dogs, and now we need
to get that young man on. Get that young man to Killarney. I enjoyed that speech, I have to say.
Canis.
Little short.
Yeah. I made a mistake in my tweet. I called him Candace, but Canis, yeah.
Jesus, a bit of respect here.
Munster under 20 final tonight. James is flying off to it. Cork against Kerry. Leinster under 20 final on Tuesday night. Kildare against Dublin.
Yeah.
Ulster under 20 final Wednesday night. Derry against Down. Keep an eye out on the Football Pod feed for a very special interview that will be dropping later this week. We're actually going to have to record it now, so we're going to go. James and Paddy, really enjoyed chatting to you again this week. We'll be back next Monday with the Football Pod.
Cheers,
Pleasure, as always.
Thanks everybody at home. And final reminder, there's about 15 tickets there for the Football Pod live in Killarney in the Great Southern Hotel on Thursday, May the 4th. Go get them before they're gone. Talk soon.